Hi, I Aziz welcome you to CoedMaster, and in this video I am going to talk about array list. So let's get started. So first thing first, what is array list? Array list is a class that implements the concept of dynamic size array in Java. So basically it is a dynamic size array and it is a part of collection framework of Java. Now what is collection framework? Collection framework is a framework in Java that provides implementation of all the complex linear and nonlinear data structures like array list, stacks, queues, trees and graph. So now let me show you what problem array list solves. So what happens in case of normal array? So here we are initializing an array with 5 elements. So what it does, it simply creates an array of capacity 5 and insert all the 5 elements in that array. So we get array like this, and this array is having 5 elements. Now if we want to add new elements in this array, we cannot add because the normal array cannot grow or shrink. So once we enter all the 5 elements, now we cannot enter new element here. And if we want to enter new element, we have to simply delete the existing element. Let's say in this case we have to simply delete the element 5 and then we can enter new element in this array. So this is a limitation of using normal arrays, that we cannot enter more elements than its capacity. Okay, so this problem is smartly solved by array list. So array list can automatically grow and shrink in size. So what happens? So let's say using this syntax we are going to create an empty array list. Now there is no allocation of memory happened till now. So as soon as we add a new element to this array list, it's going to create a new array of some specified size and enter this element in that array. So let's say the specified size is 10. So we do not have control over this parameter because it all depends upon the implementation details. So this way we add all the 5 elements to this array, and now you can see that our array list gets full. Now what happens when we want to add new element to it? So let's say we want to add new element 6 to it. So in case of array list, what happens? It's going to create a new array with the size more than the previous array, and it copies all the element from previous array into new array, and then it simply add new element at the last of the array. So now we can say that our insert is successful, and then it's going to simply delete the old array. So this is how array list grows when we want to add more elements than its capacity. Okay, what happens if we want to remove an element? So let's say we remove the 6 from the array list. Okay, so in this case it's going to shrink its size. It simply deletes the element 6. It creates a new array of size less than the previous array, and then it removes the 6th element, and it's simply going to copy all the elements from previous array to new array, and then it simply removes the element 6 from the array, and then it's going to delete old array. So this is how it is shrinking in size, and here you can see that it's growing in size. So we call it a growing phase, and we can say that it's shrinking phase. Now the question is by what factor the size of the array increases or decreases? It all depends upon the implementation details. We do not have control over this property. So sometimes it may grow like double in size, or it may grow in triple in size. It all depends upon the implementation detail. Okay, so this is the advantage we get when we use array list, that it grows automatically and it shrinks automatically, but this is not the case in the normal arrays. Once the array is full, we cannot add new element more than its capacity. Okay, so just to give you a context at how it grows and shrink, it depends upon the load factor. For example, the load factor is 0.5 and the capacity is 10. So it's going to calculate threshold, and threshold is going to be 0.5 into 10 is equal to 5. So it means till 5 element it is not going to do anything. But as soon as you are going to add 6 element, it grows its size by some capacity defined in the implementation. So actually this is how array list grows and shrink its size. So I hope now it's clear to you that how it grows and shrink in size using load factor and capacity. So far so clear. Now talking about the creation of array list, there are 3 ways you can create array list. So the first one is creating empty array list. So this is the syntax of creating an empty array list. So it means so far there is no allocation of memory happens. As soon as you add one element to this array list, it's going to allocate memory for some specified capacity defined in the implementation. And in this syntax, you can also define that which type of data you are going to store in this array list. Here you can see that I have mentioned integer. It means I want to store integers in this array list. So this is the first type you can create array list. The second type you can create the array list by specifying the initial capacity. So this is exactly how we initialize normal arrays. So here we are specifying capacity. It means when the array list gets created, so initially we want to allocate memory for at least 10 elements. Okay, so this is the second way you can create array list. Now third way to create array list is using collection class. So the collection framework provides a lot of implementation classes for linear or non-linear data structure like stacks, queues, list of strings, list of characters, and so on and so forth. So let's say you already have a collection of some strings or some other objects, and you want to create a new array list out of that collection. Then you can simply pass collection to the constructor of this array list, so you get a new array list of that collection. So these are the three ways you can create array list in Java. Now let's talk about the advantage we get when we use array list. So we get a lot of advantage along with the advantage we get when we use normal arrays. Okay, so the first advantage we get is dynamic size. So in many situations you do not know in advance that how many elements are going to be stored in an array. Even if you know the upper bound of the number of elements, let's say 100, then it may sometimes cause wastage of space. Let me show you how. Let's say there is one event is going on and you have created an array of size 500. So you are expecting that 500 people are going to be registered in this event. But what happens that only 100 people have registered in this event. So it means if you have created an array of size 500, the space of 400 elements are simply wasted. So in this case, you are simply wasting space for 400 elements. And this space you cannot reclaim because it is already reserved for array. So in this case, we can use array list and we create an empty array list initially, and then as soon as people started registering on the event, the array list grows itself by some amount. So this is how we prevent wasting of space. So the second advantage we get when we use array list is order are preserved. So it means the order in which we have added all the elements is preserved by the array list, and when we remove all the elements, we get all the elements in the same order in which we have added. The next advantage we get while using array list is random access. So as we know that internally array list uses normal arrays only, and normal arrays are stored in contiguous memory location. And when we have the address of the first element, we can simply access any element using index, and that operation is performed in big O of one time. It means constant operation. So we can randomly access any element in array list. The next advantage we get while using array list is cache friendliness. So cache is the fastest memory that resides very closest to CPU. So what happens? The most frequently data that is accessed by the CPU are stored in cache, so that your CPU do not have to make a round trip to RAM to get the data. So in this case, let's say you are accessing an element at index 2. So it might be possible that your index at 3 and 4 and 5 and 1 gets stored in cache, so that next time when you are accessing any index like 4 and 5, it quickly get that value from the cache only. So due to cache friendliness of the array list, we get data real quickly. So the next advantage we get using array list is support for other data types. As we know that in normal arrays we can only store primitive data types, but when we use array list we can also use other data types as well. And we can also use primitive data types, but we cannot directly use primitive data type. We have to use a wrapper class over it. So for example, if we have int, then we have to use integer wrapper class to store integer in array list. So this is how it overcomes the problem of limited support for data types. Now the next most important advantage we get while using array list is reach library functions. So we get a lot of functions to add elements at the end or a specific index. We get function to check whether the element exists in array list or not. We get a function to get an element at particular index. We get a function to find if the array list is empty or not. We also get functions to remove an element from a particular index, and we get a function to get the size of array list. So these are some of the few functions we get when using array list. So apart from this function, there are also many such functions available in array list classes that you can use it to make your life easy. So in case of array list, we do not have to implement all of this function by ourselves, but if we use normal arrays, we have to write all the function by ourselves. So this is the main advantage we get when we use array list. Okay, so I hope now you have a good understanding of array list. What are the advantage we get when we use array list over normal arrays, and how array list grows and shrink its size based on the two parameter, that is capacity and load factor. And you also know that there are 3 ways to create array list: using empty array list, with initial capacity, and using collection. And now you also know what are all the advantages you get when you use array list over normal arrays. So this is it for this video. Thanks for watching. See you in the next video.